Assalamualaikum dan salam sejahtera. Anda bersama dengan saya Firdaus Azil untuk Buletin AWANI pada jam ini. Kita mulakan dengan laporan. Jumlah mangsa banjir di 6 daerah di Sabah meningkat kepada 6,955 orang setakat 4 petang Jumaat. Sekretariat Jawatan Kuasa Pengurusan Bencana Negeri JPBN Sabah dalam kenyataan memaklumkan kesemua mangsa daripada 2,620 keluarga itu kini ditempatkan di 38 pusat pemindahan sementara PPS yang dibuka sejak Rabu lepas. Daerah Kemabung mencatat peningkatan jumlah mangsa kepada 3,077 orang daripada 1,096 keluarga. Penambahan itu menjadikan keseluruhan 15 PPS dibuka di daerah Kemabung. Selain itu, di Beaufort, jumlah mangsa terkini adalah sebanyak 1,541 orang daripada 540 keluarga berlindung di 5 buah PPS. Manakala Tenom merekodkan peningkatan jumlah mangsa dengan angka terkini adalah seramai 1,628 orang ditempatkan di 13 buah PPS. Secara keseluruhan, jumlah kawasan terjejas akibat banjir di 6 daerah ini kekal sebanyak 146 kampung. Tiada kemalangan jiwa atau mangsa terkorban dilaporkan. Polis menahan 7 suspek termasuk seorang wanita rakyat Thailand selepas disyaki terlibat dalam kes tembakan ke arah kenderaan yang dipandu Komander Agensi Kawalan dan Perlindungan Sempadan Malaysia AKPS di Bukit Kayu Hitam pada Rabu. Ketua Polis Kedah Datuk Azli Abu Shah berkata semua suspek berusia antara 22 hingga 52 tahun ditahan dalam 4 serbuan di sekitar kawasan Bukit Kayu Hitam menerusi operasi bersepadu bermula jam 10.30 pagi hingga 6 petang pada hari yang sama.
Menurut beliau, kesemua mereka juga tinggal berdekatan lokasi kejadian dan mengenali antara satu sama lain. Tambahnya, 2 daripada 7 suspek terbabit mempunyai kesan gunshot residue GSR iaitu rembesan tembakan daripada senjata api di bahagian tangan dan pipi. Kesan GSR turut dikesan pada kunci dan topi keledar motosikal yang dipercayai digunakan untuk melakukan jenayah berkenaan. Bagaimanapun, setakat ini senjata yang digunakan belum ditemui.
Kita telah bawa ke mahkamah untuk permohonan riman. Daripada 7 orang ni, 5 kita dapat riman selama 4 hari sehingga 1 hari bulan. 1 ni yang warga asing kita bawa reman di bawah Atas Malaysia selama 14 hari untuk kita semak ketulinan dokumen perjalanan dia. Dan juga 1 lagi kita dapat riman hanya 2 hari. Pagi ini kita akan sambung riman.
Beliau berkata demikian semasa sidang media di Ibu Pejabat Polis Kontijen IPK Kedah Alustar pada Jumaat. Dalam perkembangan sama, beliau maklumkan hasil semakan turut mendapati 4 daripada tangkapan itu mempunyai rekod jenayah lampau yang melibatkan jenayah berat, membabitkan penyeludupan, jenayah terancang dan mendatangkan cedera parah. Pada Rabu, kenderaan Proton X70 dipandu SAC Muhammad Nasaruddin Muhammad Nasir ditembak pada 5.40 pagi di susur masuk Masjid Muhajirin, Bukit Kayu Hitam, kira-kira 1 km dari sempadan Malaysia, Thailand.
Siasatan berhubung pemilikan saham melibatkan Ketua Pesuruhjaya SPRM yang dikendalikan jawatan kuasa diketuai Peguam Negara hampir siap. Menteri Komunikasi Datuk Fahmi Fadil berkata laporan penuh dijangka diserahkan pada minggu depan.
Dalam isu dakwaan pemilikan saham Ketua Pesuruhjaya SPRM, Jemaah Menteri telah dimaklumkan bahawa jawatan kuasa siasatan yang diketuai Peguam Negara hampir selesai proses siasatan dan akan menyerahkan laporan pada minggu hadapan.
Dalam pada itu, Fahmi turut memaklumkan bahawa berhubung dakwaan salah guna institusi SPRM bagi tujuan manfaat korporat, laporan polis telah dibuat dan siasatan sedang dijalankan oleh Polis Diraja Malaysia PDRM. Tambah Fahmi, PDRM sedang menyiasat dengan kadar segera bagi mengenal pasti mana-mana pihak yang melanggar undang-undang untuk dihadapkan ke muka pengadilan. Fahmi berkata, Jemaah Menteri sependapat bahawa isu berkenaan amat serius dan telah mengambil maklum cadangan untuk menubuhkan Suruhanjaya Siasatan Diraja RCI.
Suruhanjaya Pencegahan Rasuah Malaysia SPRM sedang mengesat 4 anak kepada bekas Menteri Kewangan Allahyarham Tun Daim Zainuddin bagi membantu siasatan berhubung dakwaan rasuah dan pengubahan wang haram. 4 individu berkenaan ialah Asnida, Mat Wiradani, Muhammad Amin Zainuddin dan Muhammad Amin Zainuddin. Menurut kenyataan SPRM, alamat terakhir Asnida direkodkan di Country Heights, Kajang, manakala Mat Wiradani beralamat di Taman Melawati, Ulu Klang, Kuala Lumpur. Sementara itu, Muhammad Amin Zainuddin dan Muhammad Amin Zainuddin masing-masing dilaporkan mempunyai alamat terakhir di Bukit Tungku, Kuala Lumpur. Sehubungan itu, SPRM meminta orang ramai yang mempunyai maklumat mengenai kesemua individu terbabit supaya tampil membantu siasatan dengan menghubungi pegawai penyiasat bertugas. Pada Januari 2024, Daim memfailkan permohonan di Mahkamah Tinggi Kuala Lumpur bagi mendapatkan kebenaran semakan kehakiman untuk menghentikan siasatan SPRM terhadap beliau, isterinya serta 4 anaknya termasuk syarikat Ilham Tower Sendirian Berhad. Selain Daim, isterinya Tuh Puan Naimah Abdul Khalid dan keempat-empat anak mereka turut memfailkan permohonan sama sebagai pemohon pertama hingga ke-7 menerusi firma guaman Tetuan Tommy Thomas. Pada Julai tahun lalu, SPRM telah menyita dan melucut hak aset yang dikaitkan dengan Daim, isterinya, ahli keluarga serta sekutu mereka dengan nilai melebihi 3 bilion ringgit. SPRM turut mengesan pemilikan aset luar biasa di 11 negara termasuk United Kingdom, Amerika Syarikat, Switzerland, Singapura, British Virgin Islands, Kepulauan Cayman, Jersey, Itali, Jepun, Indonesia serta beberapa negara di benua Afrika. Bank Malaysia merekodkan 42.19 juta pelawat pada 2025, meningkat 11.2% berbanding 37.96 juta pelawat pada 2024. Jurucakap Kerajaan Perpaduan Datuk Fahmi Fadil berkata, ini membuktikan keyakinan pelawat antarabangsa dengan memilih Malaysia sebagai destinasi pelancongan pilihan.
Jemaah Menteri juga telah diberi laporan oleh pihak Motek bahawa pada tahun 2025 Malaysia telah merekodkan jumlah pelawat 42.19 juta orang. Ini bagi tahun 2025 yang mana angka ini merupakan peningkatan 11.2% berbanding 37.96 juta pelawat pada tahun 2024. Kadar peningkatan 11.2% ini jauh mengatasi kadar purata global iaitu 4% peningkatan dan kadar peningkatan bagi pelawat-pelawat di Asia Pasifik iaitu 6%. Ini semestinya mencerminkan kedudukan Malaysia sebagai salah satu destinasi utama yang terus diyakini pelawat antarabangsa.
Semua pemimpin masyarakat dan jentera kerajaan perlu memanfaatkan Ramadan kali ini dengan menyantuni golongan yang masih terpinggir daripada arus pembangunan. Perdana Menteri Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim berkata, walaupun kerajaan melaksanakan pelbagai inisiatif, masih ada segelintir rakyat yang tidak mendapat manfaat sepenuhnya bantuan itu.
Dari segi kerajaan, usaha-usaha kita tabah. STR, SARA baru, gaji naik. Tetapi masih ada kelompok-kelompok rakyat, termasuk di bulan Ramadan ini, yang agak terpinggir, tersisih dan tidak mendapat manfaat. Kita jarang bicara soal mereka. Dan kita di semua peringkat agak sibuk dalam urusan masing-masing. Jadi saya nak ambil kesempatan ini nak suruh semua jawatankuasa masjid, semua jawatankuasa surau, semua guru besar, pengetua, guru kelas, ketua kampung, semua pemimpin masyarakat, memimpin belia. Inilah masa kita nak tingkatkan sedikit amal kita selain daripada munajat kepada Allah Taala, menambah kegiatan khas untuk bajikan. Boleh tak kita ada cita-cita bersama di kalangan rakyat Malaysia ini? Jadikan Ramadan ini kali ini satu kesempatan sebaiknya angkat martabat rakyat, ringankan beban mereka dan cari tiap kampung, tiap individu, tiap orang tua atau yang sakit untuk bantu mereka.
Perdana Menteri Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim menzahirkan doa agar ke bawah duli Yang Maha Mulia Seri Paduka Baginda Yang di-Pertuan Agong Sultan Ibrahim dikurniakan keafiatan yang berpanjangan. Dalam satu hantaran di media sosial pada Jumaat, beliau turut mendoakan agar Sri Paduka sentiasa berada dalam lindungan, rahmat dan inayah Allah Subhanahu Wa Taala. Ucapan itu dizahirkan susulan keadaan kesihatan Sri Paduka Baginda yang sedang gering akibat kesakitan musculoskeletal melibatkan otot dan tulang di bahagian belakang serta pinggul. Istana Negara dalam satu kenyataan hari ini memaklumkan yang di-Pertuan Agong telah dinasihatkan oleh pakar perubatan supaya berehat dan tidak berangkat ke sebarang majlis rasmi bagi memberi ruang kepada proses rawatan dan pemulihan. Istana Negara turut memaklumkan yang di-Pertuan Agong bertitah akan kembali berangkat ke majlis-majlis rasmi sebaik sahaja kesihatan baginda beransur pulih. Baik, Bersatu Perak dijangka melakukan penstrukturan semula melibatkan beberapa bahagian susulan peletakan jawatan ketua serta ahli jawatankuasa di peringkat tersebut. Ketua Penerangan Bersatu Perak Datuk Azhar Anwar memaklumkan pasukan petugas khas parti sudah mengenal pasti bahagian-bahagian terkesan termasuk satu bahagian yang menyaksikan ketuanya dipecat. Jelasnya watikah pelantikan bagi barisan kepimpinan baru di bahagian terlibat akan diserahkan dalam masa terdekat kepada Presiden Bersatu Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin. Tegas Azhar Anwar, tindakan yang diambil ini selaras dengan peruntukan dalam perlembagaan parti. Beliau turut menzahirkan penghargaan kepada ahli-ahli Bersatu yang kekal setia dan bersedia memikul amanah untuk memperkukuh jentera parti di peringkat bahagian. Sebelum ini, Bersatu bahagian Larut, Padang Rengas, Tapah dan Goping mengumumkan pembubaran masing-masing susulan kemelut dalaman yang melanda parti berkenaan. Pada masa sama, 4 wakil rakyat merangkumi 3 ahli parlimen dan seorang ahli Dewan Undangan Negeri Adun serta 4 ketua bahagian Bersatu dari Perak telah menerima surat pemecatan daripada parti tersebut. Pada Disember 2024, selepas melalui konflik lebih sedekat, Syria telah membentuk kerajaan baru menggantikan rejim di bawah pemerintahan Bashar al-Assad. Namun warga Syria yang menjadi pelarian akibat kesan konflik ini masih memerlukan bantuan untuk meneruskan kehidupan seharian mereka. Kaum Malaysia menyahut seruan ini melalui misi talian hayat di musim sejuk ketika menjejakkan kaki ke Bumi Syam pada 24 Februari lalu. Dari Idlib, Syria, ikuti misi kemanusiaan ini bersama wartawan Astro AWANI, Set Akmal.
Di belakang saya ini adalah proses pembungkusan 500 pack bungkusan makanan kepada warga pelarian di Syria. Ia merupakan misi talian hajat yang dilaksanakan oleh pihak kaum Malaysia kepada warga pelarian. Jadi kalau anda lihat sedikit, antara barang bantuan yang akan diakikan ialah minyak masak, kurma, halwa dan juga keperluan barangan asas seperti garam, beras dan sebagainya. Misi talian hayat ini penting. Ini menunjukkan bagaimana sumbangan rakyat Malaysia yang disalurkan kepada kaum dan diagihkan kepada bangsa pelarian di Syria, terutama di bulan suci Ramadan ini. Assalamualaikum.
Bermula pada jam 9 pagi Khamis, sukarelawan kaum Malaysia dipimpin oleh Nik Marina Dato' Husin beserta kaki tangan rakan NGO di Syria, Senet, melakukan persiapan 250 pack bungkusan makanan bernilai RM300. Bantuan tersebut diagihkan kepada para pelarian yang terdiri daripada kanak-kanak, wanita dan warga emas yang tinggal di kamp Al-Vander Al-Hasan di daerah Idlib, berhampiran sepadan Syria Turki. Tinjauan Astro AWANI turut menyaksikan beberapa buah kemah dibina dengan batu bata dan kain kanvas telah dirobohkan oleh penghuni asal yang telah pulang ke tempat asal mereka. Namun masih ramai yang masih tinggal di kamp-kamp pelarian atas faktor kemiskinan dan tempat asal mereka telah musnah akibat kesan perang yang melanda sejak 2014 lalu. Pada hari yang sama, kaum Malaysia turut mengagihkan 250 ekor ayam kepada warga pelarian yang tinggal di kamp Syam Al-Khair. Kediaman para pelarian di sini dibina rumah bertingkat atas sumbangan kerajaan Kuwait. Namun, para pelarian masih memerlukan bantuan berupa barangan asas untuk meneruskan kehidupan seharian. Faktor cuaca yang mencecah 7 Celsius beserta hujan tetap tidak menghalang kaum Malaysia untuk berbakti kepada para pelarian di bulan suci Ramadan.
Baik, laporan berniaga menyusul selepas ini. Jangan ke mana-mana.
nampak semua benda sekecil mana. Dengan rangkaian lancar Unify Mobile, stream tanpa gangguan dengan pengalaman video lancar. Dapatkan peranti 5G percuma bila anda naik taraf ke Unify Mobile.
Celebrate the CNY and Monkeys Canopy Resort in Sungai Long, Selangor. Enjoy festive moments with acrobatic line dances and the God of Prosperity. Redeem exclusive angpaos and festive giveaways till 3rd March. Share the joy with friends and family only at Monkeys Canopy Resort.
Istimewa sepanjang Ramadan ini, Astro bawakan Home of Ramadan. Pelbagai program menarik yang akan menemani petang anda.
Antaranya adalah sesi mengaji, bual bicara santai, masak-memasak, travelog, nyanyian nasi dan banyak lagi. Bermula 1 Ramadan ini.
Sinari Ramadanmu, suburkan iman. Bila bersama, lagi jadi. Home of Ramadan, Isnin hingga Jumaat, 5 petang di Astro Oasis dan Astro Go.
Kementerian Pendidikan bertanggungjawab sepenuhnya terhadap keselamatan murid dan pelajar sewaktu mereka di sekolah.
Malaysia dan Korea Selatan terus memperkukuh kerjasama dalam bidang teknologi hijau dan kecerdasan buatan AI menerusi pelaburan 2 syarikat utama Republik itu.
SPRM akan meneliti dan menjalankan siasatan sekiranya dapat unsur rasuah dalam pelaksanaan projek Aerotrain di KLIA yang dilaporkan sering mengalami gangguan perkhidmatan.
Tariffs on imports of products from China reaching up to 145%.
Tariffs on the rest of the world are sitting at 10%, with the potential for reciprocal tariffs to be reimposed within 90 days.
Kunjungan rasmi Presiden China ke Malaysia ini menunjukkan komitmen kedua-dua negara untuk meningkatkan hubungan diplomatik ke tahap yang lebih strategik.
Bertemu kembali, Sidang Media Kewangan bagi tahun berakhir 31 Disember 2025 yang diumumkan oleh Petronas menekankan prestasi kewangan yang kekal berdaya tahan dalam persekitaran harga minyak global yang tidak menentu serta cabaran ekonomi dunia. Keuntungan selepas cukai menunjukkan daya tahan walaupun dipengaruhi turun naik harga minyak mentah dan kadar pertukaran asing. Dan untuk perkembangan sidang media tersebut, kita bersama rakan tugas Hasimi Muhammad.
Baik, sebentar tadi telah pun berlangsung sidang media pengumuman kewangan bagi Kumpulan Petronas bagi tahun berakhir 31 Disember 2025. Dan dalam sidang media berkenaan, berbagai perkara telah pun disentuh dan memastikan Kumpulan Petronas boleh terus bergerak cemerlang dalam mendepani keadaan yang tidak menentu dan juga ketidakstabilan geopolitik. Dan hadir sama dalam sidang media berkenaan sebentar tadi ialah Presiden dan Ketua Pegawai Eksekutif Kumpulan Petronas Tan Sri Tengku Muhammad Taufik. Dan untuk jam ini kita mahu melihat juga pertama mengenai keuntungan bersih direkodkan oleh Kumpulan Petronas bagi tahun berakhir 31 Disember 2025 yang telah pun dimaklumkan. Antaranya Petronas mencatatkan keuntungan bersih sebanyak 45.4 bilion ringgit bagi tahun kewangan berakhir 31 Disember 2025 menyusul sebanyak 18% banding 55.1 bilion ringgit pada tahun lalu. Penurunan itu sebahagian besarnya disebabkan oleh harga prorata direalisasikan yang lebih rendah, jumlah jualan yang menurun, kesan pertukaran asing serta pelupusan kumpulan enjin. Manakala pendapatan kumpulan juga mencatatkan penurunan sebanyak 17% iaitu 266.1 bilion ringgit berbanding 320.0 bilion ringgit dalam tempoh sama. Dan turut dimaklumkan dalam tempoh kajian berkenaan, Petronas maklumkan pendapatan sebelum faedah, cukai, susut nilai dan pelunasan EBITDA juga berkurang 10% kepada 103.0 bilion ringgit selaras dengan keuntungan yang lebih rendah. Pada 2025, aliran tunai daripada aktiviti operasi atau CFFO berjumlah 85.2 bilion ringgit sejajar dengan paras EBITDA yang lebih rendah. Dari segi perbelanjaan moda pula, pelaburan moda berjumlah 41.6 bilion ringgit terutamanya bagi menyokong aktiviti pembangunan dan pengeluaran sektor huluan. Jumlah aset kumpulan mengukuh kepada 775.0 bilion ringgit. Bagaimanapun, ikuti pemegang saham menurun kepada RM448.3 bilion terutamanya disebabkan dividen yang diisytiharkan kepada pemegang saham serta pergerakan pertukaran asing yang sebahagian diimbangi oleh keuntungan dalam tempoh tersebut. Bagaimanapun ditekankan dalam sidang media berkenaan, syarikat minyak dan gas negara itu akan terus menggandakan usaha untuk memperkukuhkan portfolio dan kedudukan kewangan, antaranya dimaklumkan oleh Tan Sri Tengku Muhammad Taufik, antaranya adalah melihat kepada daya tahan portfolio melalui perkongsian strategi, penambahbaikan kualiti portfolio serta inisiatif yang menjana nilai tambah melalui strategi peralihan tenaga Petronas yang telah pun diperkenalkan, antaranya merangkumi pertama memperkukuh perniagaan teras iaitu hidrokarbon, kedua mempercepat pertumbuhan baharu yang menjana nilai, dan ketiga mengurus pelepasan secara bertanggungjawab merentasi rantaian nilai bersepadu. Tiga tonggak ini ditekankan bahawa ia kekal relevan sepanjang masa dan signifikan dalam usaha untuk memastikan Kumpulan Petronas terus bergerak dengan lebih baik di masa hadapan. Juga disentuh dalam sidang media berkenaan adalah mengenai agihan dividen, dan perkara ini akan kita lihat dalam bulletin-bulletin seterusnya. Tetapi untuk jam ini juga kita mahu melihat secara menyeluruh sidang media berkenaan yang telah pun selesai sebentar tadi, dan untuk itu kita dengarkan sidang media penuh telah pun disampaikan oleh Kumpulan Petronas berhubung kewangan bagi tahun berakhir 31 Disember 2025.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Members of the media, friends and colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and good afternoon. And I should not neglect Selamat Berpuasa. Thank you for joining us for the Petronas Group Full Year 2025 Financial Results Announcement. Today, we will be sharing some insights on how Petronas has worked to continue delivering value in a year that has been beset by geopolitical volatility, prolonged elevated costs, and persistent market uncertainty. Notwithstanding the developments in the operating environment, Petronas remains unwavering in discharging our two core duties, namely, firstly, creating long-term sustainable value for our shareholders and stakeholders. Secondly, providing energy security affordably, reliably, and responsibly to all those we serve. The results that you're about to see were delivered on the back of the group's efforts in reinforcing portfolio resilience. I stress again, portfolio resilience. These efforts were underpinned by prudent financial management and the continuing commitment to operational and commercial excellence by all employees of the group. After this, in a few moments, Petronas EVP and Group CFO Puan Liza will share more details about the group financial performance for the period under review. But before we begin, permit me to formally announce, of course, the appointment of Encik Muhammad Jukris Abdul Wahab as the Chief Operating Officer of Petronas. I believe some of you may have already reported this piece of news in early February. He also retains the EVP upstream role, so he will work twice as hard. Encik Jukris assumes this role on top of his existing responsibilities, and I hope the media will work with him. For the Q&A session later, Puan Liza and I will, as usual, be joined not only by Encik Jukris, but also the EVP and CEO of Gas and Maritime, Dato' Adif Zulkifli, and of course the EVP and CEO of Downstream, Dato' Sazali Hamzah. Ladies and gentlemen, how do we begin? The geopolitical fragmentation that has been gathering momentum in the post-COVID era unfortunately persisted and intensified throughout last year. The significant shifts in the political, economic, and diplomatic landscape have inevitably resulted in governments across the world reacting to safeguard their respective national interests. More and more, across the globe, we are now witnessing the implementation of regulatory and business policies that prioritize energy security and indeed resource sovereignty. So even as these same economies pursue industrial and technological competitiveness with even greater fervor. These responses are expected, but they are contributing to an increasingly fragile global economy and making our operating environment even more uncertain. This necessitates all businesses to continuously adapt and pivot their strategies with a marked focus on building resilience. So during the period under review, some notable metrics you need to take cognizance of. Oil prices fell by 14% to $69 per barrel from $81 per barrel in the prior year. And this was attributable to oversupply concerns and persistent macroeconomic headwinds. The average LNG spot prices, however, increased by 7% from 2024 to 2025 by reaching $12.70 per MMBTU. This indicates rising demand for LNG, not only in Northeast Asia, our core markets, but also in Europe. Refining margins recovered somewhat by 18% in 2025, partially due to short-term supply-demand dynamics. Ethylene, which we use as a proxy for chemical prices, saw a reduction, indicating that this sector is facing softening, a reduction of 12% in 2025 to levels which are lowest on record as a result of prolonged global oversupply and persistent weak demand. Petronas navigated the continued volatility we saw last year with focus, a focus that was relentless on strengthening portfolio resilience, as I mentioned earlier. We did this through strategic partnerships, we did this through portfolio high grading, and we also embarked on value-accretive undertakings. These efforts continue to be underpinned by prudent financial management, and certainly we still continue to pursue operational and commercial excellence. As a result, I can now report that Petronas' financial performance for the full year of 2025 remained resilient, with a profit after tax of 45.4 billion, 45.5 there, on the back of 266.1 billion in revenue. EBITDA stood at 103 billion for the year under review. Puan Liza will, of course, elaborate on these financial highlights shortly. In delivering the group's performance, safety, of course, continues to be the top imperative in all of our business and operations, and I am pleased to report that for the year 2025, Petronas recorded a lost time injury frequency of only 0.15 per million man-hours, and we continue to work to improve this. The group is also very pleased to report that we recorded 0 fatality across operations under our control. The group will also continue to do all that is possible to uphold this benchmark and create a safe working environment for all its employees, all of our partners, and indeed the community at large. Ladies and gentlemen, members of the media, the Petronas Energy Transition Strategy was put in place to guide our group-wide efforts amid prolonged uncertainty in this operating environment. The 3 key pillars of the strategy are, firstly, strengthening our core business, which is hydrocarbons. Secondly, accelerating value-accretive growth in new business. And thirdly, responsibly managing emissions across our integrated value chain. These core pillars remain timeless, and they are as relevant as ever amidst the series of unexpected global developments that we've seen. This adherence to 3 pillars is a testament to our collective clear vision and the focused execution of our employees group-wide. Nevertheless, to reinforce our strategic position to deliver progress in all of these 3 areas, Petronas has ramped up our efforts to bolster the resilience of our entire portfolio. Now, this has been done through measures which include novel and innovative strategic partnerships, together with portfolio high grading, and of course, embarking on those value-accretive undertakings. These measures are not only necessary in navigating today's realities, but also generally aligned with the trends that you will see amongst our peers in the IOC and NOC set. Petronas must continue to be guided by prudent financial management, as well as the ongoing pursuit of operational and commercial excellence, even as we strive to meet the wide-ranging and ever-growing expectations of stakeholders across the spectrum. You will see these efforts manifest in some of the key highlights across our business, which I will share briefly with you. We now can begin with upstream. As the global pursuit of energy security intensifies, the exploration and development of hydrocarbons remains crucial. It is crucial to ensure long-term affordability and indeed energy reliability. However, producers are now expected to deliver more, deliver cleaner, and deliver faster. This has prompted the formation of innovative and novel partnership models to accelerate value creation. To serve these heightened demands, Petronas remains steadfast in building a robust upstream portfolio, which is focused on being resilient. We have also pursued international growth while being mindful of emissions, and we will continue to mature our carbon capture and storage value chain, all towards producing low-cost, low-emissions barrels. These were delivered through the following achievements. We have continued to fortify a more vibrant upstream ecosystem in Malaysia. We've assumed the operatorship of 3 new PSCs and launched the Malaysia Bid Round 2025, which offered 5 exploration blocks and 3 discovered resource opportunities. We've expanded our international footprint through PSCs in Suriname and Guyana. We entered into key principles agreement for the North Sumatra offshore PSC through Vestigo. We entered into 2 memoranda of understanding for exploration collaboration in the Middle East and Southeast Asia. We embarked, as widely reported, on our first satellite business model with an IOC, namely ENI, to accelerate project development cycles and optimize capital allocation for assets in both Malaysia and Indonesia. We entered an agreement for the technical studies and front-end engineering design, or FEED, for the Duyung offshore carbon storage site and secured Malaysia's first offshore assessment CCS permit for the Duyung field. Now moving swiftly to gas and maritime. As the markets have demonstrated, the demand for gas and LNG is expected to remain resilient. We remain steadfast in advocating natural gas, not only as a transition, but ultimately as a destination fuel, playing a critical role in helping countries meet their lower carbon aspirations and in pursuing their economic ambitions. We're one of the largest LNG producers in the world, so Petronas is committed to ensure that gas, and indeed LNG, flows safely and reliably to our customers across continents. This was largely done through a focus on operational excellence and diversification of supply nodes to provide optionality and flexibility. Measures that we undertook in this regard have yielded results. These include delivery of 563 LNG cargoes from our facilities and various supply nodes to customers around the world. I'm proud to report, and I think Dato' Adif will only be too pleased to share later, that this number includes cargoes from LNG Canada, which saw the successful commissioning of Train 1 and 2 in the period under review. We also entered into a long-term partnership with Mid-Ocean Energy in North Montney Upstream Joint Venture, as well as the North Montney LNG Limited Partnership. This unlocks additional value through shared opportunities in Canada. We also secured long-term LNG supply to CNOOC for a volume amounting to 1 million tonnes per annum. This is continuing to be a testament to our role as a trusted energy partner in this region. We signed sale and purchase agreements for LNG supply from Venture Global, Woodside LNG, and Pembina, or for specifically the project Sidang, for a collective 3 million tonnes per annum. This provides us optionality and diversifies our supply source. This paves the way for Petronas to increasingly leverage asset-backed LNG trading, and this helps us harness value from the markets. We secured the award for the Kelidang Floating Production Unit via our listed maritime subsidiary, MIC, for natural gas development projects in Brunei, marking MIC's entry into that nation's offshore market. Finally, let's take a look at downstream. In 2025, we continued to focus on operational and commercial excellence, even as we work to expand into new non-traditional businesses. These lower carbon ventures are putting in the building blocks for Petronas to become what we hope to be, indeed, an energy superstore. This is a significant milestone, and indeed, one significant milestone we recorded this year was the first biorefinery in Pengerang, in partnership with Enilive from Italy and Euglena from Japan. This facility will have a processing capacity of 650,000 tonnes of renewable feedstock. We also introduced Infinity Esters. This is a new range of plant-based biodegradable emollients for personal care applications, expanding our suite of eco-friendly offerings. Moving away from the core business and into our clean energy vehicle, Gentari, the team entered into a collaboration agreement with Gamuda to develop up to 1.5 gigawatts of solar capacity to power strategic hyperscale data centers. Gentari also commissioned India's first on-site hybrid round-the-clock renewables project with long-term partner Ultratech Cement, which will deliver 7.5 megawatts of clean energy in Gujarat. We expanded regional EV charging networks to 1,181 charging points, including 515 DC fast chargers, not only in Malaysia, but also into Thailand and indeed in India. We've signed the first long-term sale and purchase agreement with Uniper for the supply of up to 500 kilotons per annum of renewable fuels of non-biological origin compliant. That's a mouthful. It's RFNBO green ammonia from 1 MTPA facility in Kakinada, India. This marks Gentari's participation in the European effort to decarbonize its energy. A common theme that runs across these group-wide efforts is partnership. We've entered into partnerships in various forms. Both of them include conventional and unconventional partners. These are efforts to diversify and fortify our portfolio. Partnerships is a theme that is increasingly prominent in the global industry and is expected to remain so for some time to come. Globally, we've also seen a marked shift in the debate from energy transition to energy addition. While there may be course corrections driven by economic realities in the markets we operate, to ensure our operations remain competitive and indeed relevant, Petronas will remain committed to managing emissions within operational control, as set out in our strategy. There is no walking back, there is no U-turn. We are remaining steadfast to that commitment. It remains our duty to support the climate goals of Malaysia specifically, and indeed the world at large. It is ultimately our responsibility to future generations, and this is clearly embedded in our statement of purpose. Having realized our short-term goals under the net zero carbon emissions by 2050 pathway, I'm pleased to share that in 2025, Petronas achieved a 72% reduction in methane emissions across our group-wide natural gas value chain. This exceeds our stated target of 50%. However, in the same period, and in all transparency, there was a slight increase in our GHG emissions of 2.2%. But this happened because we assumed operational control of 2 PSCs that came into the fold. Ladies and gentlemen, as the global landscape continues to be reshaped by shifting geopolitical forces, and even as Petronas adapts by building a more resilient portfolio through all of these strategic measures I've just shared, what remains constant is Petronas' commitment to those we serve, both in Malaysia and to customers and communities around the world where we operate. We will continue to fulfill our obligations. We are Malaysia's national oil company. We will manage the hydrocarbon resources entrusted to us under the Petroleum Development Act of 1974, and we will do so for the benefit of all Malaysians. The expertise that we have accumulated over 5 decades of existence has now been recognized not only here, but by governments in our international operations. This has been demonstrated by having been repeatedly invited to participate in the oil and gas sectors abroad, not just as an upstream player, but as an integrated energy player with specialized technical expertise and proven results. Above and beyond this, Petronas has been unwavering in its social impact efforts. In 2025, despite a difficult year, we continued to promote CSR and invested 600 million in the areas of education, community well-being, and education. I would like to put on record here my sincere appreciation to all our partners who have been alongside us in all of these endeavors. Ladies and gentlemen, members of the media, I do not exaggerate in saying that the year under review was one that truly tested oil companies, whether they were IOCs or national oil companies across the globe. Global powers contended with energy security and, of course, increasing resource scarcity, even as we saw an increasingly competitive world. So we can attest there has been a clear shift in the oil and gas and indeed the wider energy industry. And we have to recognize this. And in doing so, Petronas will need to pursue all avenues available to build further resilience, both for our portfolio and indeed for our balance sheet. So as Petronas pushes forward, the imperative is to continue the efforts that you've seen and I've just reported as having been done in 2025, even as we have to preserve and create more value through strategic partnerships, by high-grading our portfolio and sharpening our focus to only pursue value-accretive undertakings. I'll cover more on this in the second part of my presentation, but I think as you are awaiting the numbers, I'd hand the floor over to Lisa, who will now take you through our financial performance for the full year of 2025 in more detail. Over to you, Lisa.
Thank you, Tan Sri Tengku Taufik. Ladies and gentlemen, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and good afternoon. In 2025, the global operating environment for the energy sector became more challenging, with markets experiencing even more heightened volatility. Oversupply concerns persisted as production increases were not met by similar growth in demand. At the same time, macroeconomic uncertainty and escalating trade tensions contributed to a muted demand outlook. Collectively, these conditions shaped the Brent pricing dynamics throughout the year. Average Brent price fell to $69 per barrel in 2025 from $81 per barrel in 2024, representing a 14% year-on-year decline. On the foreign exchange front, the US dollar traded softer against the Malaysian ringgit during the year. The average exchange rate was 4.28 ringgit per US dollar in 2025, compared with 4.58 ringgit per US dollar in 2024, reflecting a firmer ringgit overall. This movement was attributed to weaker dollar environment as market expectations adjusted to Federal Reserve easing, coupled with evolving uncertainties surrounding US governance and policy direction. Concurrently, Malaysia's supportive economic backdrop, anchored by initiatives to boost consumption, investment and tourism, contributed towards strengthening the ringgit. Operating in a volatile and unpredictable environment, Petronas delivered its 2025 performance through disciplined execution amid the heightened market complexity. This commitment was underpinned by continued focus and emphasis on commercial and operational excellence across the portfolio, with safety being maintained as top priority in everything we do. For the year 2025, the group posted revenue of 266.1 billion ringgit, profit after tax of 45.4 billion ringgit, EBITDA of 103 billion ringgit, and CFFO of 85.2 billion ringgit. Petronas will uphold prudent financial management and maintain strict capital discipline, taking a focused and selective approach to investments and capital allocation to support sustainable and value-accretive growth. In parallel, the group remains steadfast in delivering energy security in a just and responsible manner, while continuing to contribute towards a lower carbon future in line with Petronas's energy transition strategy. Petronas's results for the financial year ended 31st December 2025 is compared against corresponding period last year. Total revenue recorded for the year was 266.1 billion ringgit, down by 17% from 2024. This was primarily driven by softer average realized prices for petroleum products, crude oil and condensates, foreign exchange impact, and lower sales volumes, with the comparison also reflecting the absence of Engen Group's revenue following its divestment in 2024. Notwithstanding the challenging market conditions, the financial results for 2025 was supported by businesses' efforts in sharper execution with regards to both operational and commercial excellence. In 2025, upstream business delivered a 3 billion ringgit reduction in operating expenditure, driven largely by enhancements in the ways we operate and disciplined optimization efforts. This underscores our clear focus on strategic cost management. Upstream business also continues to strengthen resilience through strategic growth by expanding operatorship in Malaysia through 3 new offshore Sabah blocks. Internationally, we further deepen our footprint across Suriname, Guyana, the Middle East, and Southeast Asia. In parallel, we progress our decarbonization as a service aspiration by securing the first ever offshore assessment permit for Duyung Field under the new CCUS Act. Gas and maritime business enhanced its operational robustness in 2025 and continued to deliver reliably, recording LNG sales of close to 37 million metric tons, equivalent to 563 LNG cargoes. This was underpinned by sustained production and enhanced trading optimization, with deliveries reaching customers worldwide. Additionally, close to 2.2 billion standard cubic feet per day of sales gas was delivered to Peninsular Malaysia, supporting the nation's energy security. During the year, LNG Canada successfully commissioned Trains 1 and 2, a key advancement towards full Phase 1 completion. This milestone expands our global footprint and reinforces our ability to meet energy needs sustainably. In parallel, MISC delivered 7 new generation LNG carriers in 2025 with consortium partners, equipped with advanced systems that place these vessels amongst the most efficient and sustainable LNG carriers in operations today. Downstream business also demonstrated operational excellence in 2025. Petronas Dagangan Berhad recorded its highest ever sales volume, supported by higher jet fuel uplift and stronger MoGas performance, resulting from swift and seamless integration of settle application upon the rollout of Budi 95. This achievement helped to partially mitigate the overall reduction of petroleum product sales volume following divestment of the engine group in 2024. In parallel, plant performance improved, with overall equipment effectiveness rising to 92.6%. In Gentari, our clean energy solutions business maintained steady progress in delivering value-accretive investment. As of 31st December 2025, Gentari achieved a cumulative renewable energy and storage capacity of 9.1 gigawatts installed and under construction, of which 4.2 gigawatt is installed capacity. Profit after tax stood at 45.4 billion ringgit, lower compared to last year, in line with lower revenue, coupled with dilution and divestment of certain assets. Nevertheless, lower operating and tax expenses provided a cushion against the decline. Profit margin in 2025 was comparable against last year at 17%, in line with the trending of our peers. In line with lower profits, the group registered a lower EBITDA against last year at 103 billion ringgit. Group costs stood at close to 228 billion ringgit, of which over 80% is related to domestic activities. Ladies and gentlemen, Petronas continues to reinforce capital discipline during the year to safeguard financial resilience, given that unfavorable macroeconomic conditions is expected to be prolonged. The group remains selective in its capital deployment, thus ensuring its investments in both core and new businesses are value accretive and accordingly abides by its strict and rigorous capital allocation framework. In 2025, the group's overall capex stood at 41.6 billion ringgit, with 60% attributable to activities in Malaysia. On the domestic front, capex was primarily directed towards the construction of Petronas' third floating LNG facility, decarbonization project for Kasawari gas field, and growth projects for Petronas Gas Berhad. Outside Malaysia, investments included the development of LNG export infrastructure in Canada, oil field developments in Angola, exploration activities in Suriname and in the UAE, as well as the acquisition of wind and solar assets in India. To ensure energy security, affordability, and sustainability for the nation, notable investments continue to be undertaken in Malaysia, whereby 20 upstream projects achieved first hydrocarbon, another 23 projects successfully progressed to final investment decision stage, and 8 exploration discoveries made. In addition, 3 production sharing contracts under discovered resources opportunities were awarded during the Malaysia Bid Round 2025. It is critical that Petronas continues to uphold its disciplined liquidity management, given the heightened volatility of the energy market, rising operating costs, and muted global demand. It is also imperative for Petronas to maintain robust cash flows to strengthen our core portfolio, support future growth in energy transition, and fund decarbonization efforts. The group recorded CFFO at 85.2 billion ringgit in 2025. This sufficiently covers expenses for operational continuity, financial commitment, debt obligation, and at the same time support growth investments and dividend payments to our shareholders. As at 31st December 2025, total borrowings stood close to 122 billion ringgit. In 2025, Petronas paid 32 billion ringgit dividend to shareholders, 24.3 billion ringgit for tax payments including state sales tax and duties, 10.8 billion ringgit petroleum cash payments, and 100 million ringgit towards the National Trust Fund. Petronas also invested over 600 million ringgit to support inclusive societal progress through programs centered on education, livelihoods, and environment. Despite the market headwinds mentioned earlier, the group ended the year with total assets at 775 billion ringgit, which strengthened from 67 billion at 31st December 2024. Meanwhile, shareholders' equity reduced to 448 billion ringgit, mainly attributed to dividends declared to shareholders and foreign exchange translation impact arising from the consolidation of foreign currency subsidiaries. This was cushioned by profit recorded during the year. Looking ahead to 2026, Petronas will remain committed to a pragmatic and disciplined approach, striking the right balance between reinforcing financial resilience and driving growth, with equal emphasis on value generation and value preservation. The group's capital allocation will remain tightly linked to clear value creation, underpinned by strict capital discipline and ongoing cost resets, to remain robust in a lower price environment, as well as sharper prioritization across the portfolio. Building on this, the group will continue strengthening its asset base to ensure a healthy and resilient portfolio through a combination of strategic industry partnerships that unlock value, as well as asset high grading to enhance capital efficiency. Ladies and gentlemen, over the past decade, the energy sector has been reshaped by macroeconomic, technological, and geopolitical shifts, exerting sustained pressure on industry economics and margins. These trends are structural in nature and widely experienced among industry peers, including Petronas. Against this wider industry backdrop, Petronas remains focused on strengthening its resilience and delivering long-term value creation. That brings us to the end of the results announcement, and I thank you for your kind attention. I now hand the floor back to Tan Sri Tengku Taufik to continue.
Thank you, Riza. Whilst Petronas' performance is aligned with industry peers, as you've just seen earlier, we believe that this uncertainty you're seeing, augmented as it is, will remain for the foreseeable future. One long acknowledged reality is that the oil and gas industry stands at the intersection of politics, economics, and diplomacy. So as these elements interact with each other, trade-offs are made, the impacts will also continue to compound and indeed exacerbate the current set of circumstances we're contending with. And in contending with these complexities and circumstances, IOCs and national companies alike are collectively moving towards building resilience. This is the theme of the entire message today. Building resilience necessary to withstand the headwinds. These measures are imperative as we contend with three undeniable developments over the short to medium term. Firstly, the threat of margin erosion. You've already seen margin erosion manifest in our results, but we will see this come under even more pressure as cost inflation converges with prices softening. Secondly, trade routes are being reshaped. Supply chains need to be reconfigured as the global order is realigning. Thirdly, we're contending with technological disruption never before seen at a magnitude and frequency never before seen in the form of AI and indeed other technologies. These three challenges you see on the slide are universal as players across the oil and gas value chain work to strengthen their positions in the plight to survive in the short term and in order to also thrive sustainably over the long term. So in the same vein, as Petronas moves forward this year, we will continue building upon the momentum that we gained last year with the objective to strengthen our position to deliver value over both the short and the long term. As I have hinted before, we will be carrying this out by building portfolio resilience. We will pursue more strategic partnerships. We will continue with portfolio high grading, and we will only be very selective in pursuing value accretive undertakings. Prudent financial management, as highlighted by Lisa, will be coupled with firm discipline in capital allocation. We will need to focus on businesses that actually generate revenue. Operationally and commercially, we will pursue excellence, and this underpins all our efforts. At Petronas, we recognize we have a unique position as both an NOC for Malaysia and also a recognized international player with an integrated and indeed expansive global footprint. This dual role is one we've carved out for ourselves through over 50 years of progressive growth and strategic expansion. It is indeed a testament to the trust that has been bestowed by our shareholders and also the trust that's been cultivated with our counterparties and stakeholders. It is a position that we continue to value deeply, and we will uphold this continuously. So even as Petronas contends with the macroeconomic shifts and as Petronas adapts to have its strategy remain competitive in this current climate, I want to reiterate our commitment to our responsibilities and our purpose remains unwavering. On the home front in Malaysia, Petronas carries the role of the custodian and also the regulator of the oil and gas sector. Our end-to-end view of the hydrocarbons value chain has enabled us to nurture a thriving and competitive ecosystem. Many do not realize, and I'd ask the team to pause here for a while, that we're responsible for an ecosystem that sees over 10,700 kilometers of pipelines, 3,166 wells, 405 offshore platforms, floaters, terminals, and supply bases that help us manage over 100 active PSCs. This means all the way from offshore platforms where molecules are extracted, all the way down to the delivery to our customers, not only here, but around the world, to the households that rely on us, to the people who take for granted that when you flick a switch, power will come on, to the industries that need 24/7 power. We need to work with them as partners to generate economic value, not only for Malaysia, but for the nations we serve. So above and beyond this, there needs to be recognition that Petronas has contributed almost 1.6 trillion to the nation's economy in the form of dividends, royalties, taxes, cash payments, and to the National Trust Fund. So far, we remain its sole contributor. As the regulator of the sector, Petronas works to create a vibrant upstream ecosystem, not merely through fair and attractive PSCs that I mentioned earlier, but also undertaking initiatives. We have onboarded 173 vendors through our VDP program. Through our vendor financing program, we have facilitated access for 378 applications amounting to over 2 billion of financing value for players. Over and above this, given our steadfast commitment to lifting lives and educating, we've invested 4.2 billion in the Petronas education sponsorship programs, and this has benefited more than 40,000 Malaysians. In the last 5-year period between 2020 to 2025, Petronas recorded social impact contribution of up to 4.5 billion, and this has impacted 16.7 million beneficiaries. Internationally, as we continue to expand into new markets and new countries, we bring the expertise that we have refined, and indeed, we work collaboratively with local host governments and partners, as well as vendors, to deliver what is most sought after today, namely energy security. But most importantly, we remain steadfast and continue to be firmly committed to our net zero carbon emissions by 2050 pathway that we set out. We note that the world has shifted in focus to energy security, and we know that pragmatism is the largest overarching guide to energy transition conversations today. But as global expectations ebb and flow, Petronas remains steadfast in our belief that we have a responsibility to manage emissions in our operations, to meet the diverse expectations, not only here at home, but also abroad. So as I conclude this bookend presentation, permit me to reiterate that even as we contend with the persistent complexities in our current operating environment, the core principles that define Petronas will remain unchanged. As we move forward in 2026, Petronas will remain resolute in delivering, firstly, long-term sustainable value, and secondly, energy security. And we will do so affordably, responsibly, and reliably. All our efforts will continue to be guided by, I have to reiterate this, the Petroleum Development Act 1974, under which, as Malaysia's national oil company, we continue to fulfill our duties to responsibly manage the natural resources for the benefit of Malaysia and all of its people. We also seek to emulate this wherever we conduct our operations. Secondly, we have a purpose to fulfill, to become a progressive energy and solutions partner enriching lives for a sustainable future. It is Petronas' continuing conviction that in fulfilling this purpose, we help ourselves become more relevant in forming both new and nurturing also existing partnerships as they become more important levers for us in pursuing our long-term growth. We will seek to grow these partnerships, and we will seek to build new alliances to build an even stronger foundation as we move forward. And finally, our energy transition strategy, which will see us continuing our focus on core, that is our hydrocarbons business, even as we grow our cleaner, more decarbonized, value-accretive new businesses. We will do this at all times, ensuring responsible emissions management. So before we take the Q&A, I want to thank you for joining us today. The leadership team and I indeed look forward to taking your questions during the press conference shortly. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Tan Sri. Before we open the floor for questions, I would like to invite Encik Nur Hafizal to provide some brief context to guide our next discussion.
Yeah, as mentioned by Hana, I would like to acknowledge that some of you may have questions related to Sarawak matters. However, as these issues are currently before the courts, our leaders are not in the position to comment further. Yeah? We urge all parties to respect and allow the judicial process to take its course. I will now pass back to Hana to facilitate the Q&A session. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'll proceed with the Q&A session and invite questions from the media. Just a few housekeeping notes. Please raise your hand and wait for the microphone. Kindly introduce yourself and your organization before posing your question. A gentle reminder, we encourage keeping to one question per person to ensure everyone can engage with us. Could we have the first question, please? Sir in blue in front here. Aisha.
Hi, hi everyone. Adam from The Edge. My first question is, seems there was a bit of slowdown in upstream activities last year, which companies partly point to long-term contract handovers and so on. Tan Sri, you showed us the capex numbers. If you can summarize your activity outlook, will activity levels this year improve? And just another one from me, for gas industry players, the development of regasification terminal, is it an indication that these players can or should prepare for an open market soon? Thank you.
I'll answer for both. Then I will invite the people who directly oversee and note what has happened within both exploration as well as development activities to also weigh in. And on the regas terminal, some fresh off the news development, I think we can have Dato' Adif also weigh in. The answer to that is yes, we expect to fulfill what we indicated in our petroleum activities outlook. What we saw last year was, as Lisa has outlined, a 41B capex, which was restrained and reined in because we needed to make sure the projects could be delivered economically and the returns hurdles would be cleared. And this is the kind of philosophy that I have intimated today. As we go forward, we need to make sure value accretion does manifest and does get realized. We have a duty to make sure, as we monetize these hydrocarbons, the economic returns for Petronas and indeed the PACs that work with us are met. That is challenging going forward because, as I alluded, there is cost inflation meeting head-on with softening prices. Notwithstanding what you see as crises of security across the world, we have seen prices only range-bound moving between 65 to 72. There haven't been any real shocks because fundamentally there appears to be supply adequate to meet demand in the near term. Specifically to exploration activities, maybe I can ask Cik Chris to comment, and then I'll invite Dato' Adif to also weigh in on the RGT. The RGT, as you mentioned, as a headline, I want to just say we are in sync and supportive of the government's efforts to ensure that there is a transformation and a liberalization of the market. We need to recognize that we are working with depleting assets. Our efforts to secure new supply nodes also to an extent ensures that Peninsular Malaysia, where we'll see a degree of heightened demand driven by urbanization, middle income growing, as well as more manufacturing. And of course, the latest addition to this slice of demand is AI and data centers. This can be met. As I said, we have a prime duty to ensure energy security is there, and we have to ensure that once we bring in the volumes necessary in the form of LNG and they get regasified, there is a recognition we have to move to market prices. So gentlemen, over to you, and of course of that, Adif.
Yeah, thank you, Natri. The outlook for upstream moving forward looks very positive for us. We continue to be robust in our expenditure, and this is in line with our expansion growth in upstream in Malaysia and also beyond Malaysia. Yes, we do see a little bit of reduction in the exploration expenditure domestically, particularly we slice and dice by regions. We start to shift the exploration expenditure more towards the Peninsular Malaysia side, trying to open up new geological play in those regions. In the eastern side of Malaysia, it is not lack of productivity, it's not lack of geological prospectivity, but the current situation that has been prevailing over the past 2 years, 3 years, doesn't bode down well with the confidence of the investors. So it reflects the sentiment of the investors on the prevailing situation. So for Petronas, as far as upstream is concerned overall, we set our sight on expanding our international growth to about 60% over the next 10 years. So this is very much on course, despite continued capital discipline that we will continue to enforce.
Thank you, Tan Sri. As Tan Sri mentioned, I think there is a expectation of increasing energy demand in the Peninsular Malaysia, especially. I mean, growing middle income, increasing industrial base. We have got, development of new data centers and AI, so that require quite a lot of energy, especially electrons. Given that our offshore supply is quite limited to a certain extent, there will be a need that we need to import more LNG. With that, I think there will be a requirement for a third RGT. And today, Petronas is working very closely with both Ministry of Economy and also with Suruhanjaya Tenaga. And we're giving our input, and then we are also giving in terms of, the development of the RGT. Certainly, I think the path towards market liberalization has always been in the works for quite some time now. Third-party access has already been, approved for quite a number of years now. What needed to spur this, importation of LNG will be the full market liberalization, which we expect by 2028, as per the latest projection that we hear from the government. So we are all lining up for that. In the meantime, Petronas is out securing new supply to ensure that energy security for Malaysia is secured. So I think those are some of the efforts that we're doing on our side to make sure that we have enough gas to supply into all our customers, both in the power and the non-power sectors in Malaysia. Thank you.
Could we have the next question, please?
Hi, I'm Afrina from TV3. So with the continued uncertainties in the global economy and also geopolitical issues that also affect oil pricing, how do you balance to give a resilient financial performance this year while also maintaining your commitment to give a good amount of dividends to the government?
This is the perennial challenge of any management team of any company, whether you're listed or not. Whether the only difference is whether if you're listed, you have a diverse set of shareholders and institutionals who expect a certain recurring return. And in the context of Malaysia, whether we want to accept it or not, there is still 18 to 20% of the country's revenue coming from oil and gas sector. Okay. The answer for dividends, it's going to be boring for you to hear. It will always going to be governed by our affordability. But I think the emphasis placed by Lisa, and I may invite her to weigh in here, is as we face balancing the needs for creating a funnel for future growth, the plowing back in of those robust cash flows she was alluding to, this year it was 85 billion, we must make sure there is adequate allocation to ensure that the funnels are refreshed. So as we go forward, notwithstanding the near-term, what we believe to be softening prices, we must contend with the fact that the energy transition is evolving more into an energy addition. We won't have a new system displace oil and gas in the near term. We will need to prepare for both the current needs and the growing demands as described by Dato' Arif. The world still runs on about 304 million barrels a day, but we don't see anything displacing a large slice of that, which is from a decarbonized center, unless there is a massive embarking of nuclear. What our hypothesis is, we still need to power economies as they grow. In Malaysia, 34 million people. In the region, 700 million people. In Asia, where two of the largest economies, India and China are, and we are partners, and of course with Japan, a long-standing customer, where we power 16 to 17% of, where we provide 16 to 17% of their LNG, the need to actually make sure that there's visibility, that energy is available, it is secured, it's reliable, that spending needs to happen. Even as that happens, we need to prepare for the next energy system, which is why we took a position with Gentari. Balancing this against dividends, of course, Lisa has and I was in her seat before, has the unenviable task of having to manage the tension between making sure that our creditworthiness, our ability of withstanding sudden shocks is there, putting money back into the system to create future funnels for growth, and ultimately also making sure that the shareholders get their due returns. This is a conversation, but the ultimate guidance is, of course, affordability, and we take account the prevailing market conditions. Anything you want to add, Lisa?
Maybe just the one, which is yesterday, the Petronas board approved dividend of 20 billion ringgit for 2026 to our shareholder.
Is there a next question, please?
Hi, this is Seiichi Oshima from GG Press, a Japanese news agency. You mentioned about the start of the LNG Canada phase 1. And when can we expect the final decision about the investment for phase 2?
Oshima-san, we have just started. Our first cargoes went to Canada, from Canada to Japan last year, and I think there's great interest, and I want to take this moment to acknowledge there's great interest as to whether we're going to push forward with LNG Canada Phase 2 with our partners Shell and Mitsubishi, of course, from Japan, because this is a production node that is sending out gas which is 35% GHG emissions lower than many other facilities around the world. So indeed, this is a means of decarbonizing energy systems, and Canada is in a unique position to do it. The FID for this is expected sometime this year. The partners are already in for the second phase, expected this year. I will ask Adif to describe where we stand, I think how far we are from making that decision.
I think Tansi already said most of it. As you expect, there are 5 partners in this venture. I think we are just quite happy that we finally get the phase 1, on stream. Today, we are running at full capacity already for train 1 and train 2. We are very happy about that. I think it's all about focusing on getting that operation stabilized now, with all the teething issues that we had over the last couple of months. But in parallel, we are working very hard to get the phase 2 to FID. So all partners are working. We are working through all the engineering. We are working all through the costing. And we hope by latest end of the year or end of quarter 3, we should be able to be in a position to take FID. Thank you.
Is there a next question?
Hi, Tan Sri. Ram here from Bloomberg. Just checking back, Puan Liza, you've given the dividend outlook for 2026, but I just want to know the price outlook that's factored in, because $69 per barrel was last year. What are you expecting for this year?
You know my answer will always be wrong, right? It will always be wrong. So it's pointless for us to try and predict. But for our planning over the next 5 years, we've been range bound between 65 to 70. So insofar as our guidance, but we go even with more stringent tests. That we have a low price scenario under which Jukri's undertaking and Adif's undertakings and Sazali's undertakings have to pass muster. And it starts all the way from upstream. We're working to lower our break-even costs. I think it has probably been told to the market that we're working to try and bring UPCs, unit production costs, down to $6. This is why operational excellence and commercial excellence is something that we're not going to compromise on. Even as we do that, and the demand for more secure, more reliable, affordable, we still have to make sure that we get our delivery cleaner and more sustainable, which is why reporting a 72% reduction in methane emissions is important to us. And Jukri is also working on lowering carbon intensity per barrel of oil equivalent. It's the golden age of engineering. The engineering fraternity, the geologists who work with them, will need to find a solution because the world can't wean itself away from oil and gas that quickly. There will be a day, long after maybe all of us are not here, but we'll have to plan for the time in the interim, and that means furnishing that funnel and having the reserves replaced, which is why the amping up roughly, and I can say over the next 5 years, roughly just slightly north of 2 billion ringgit a year has been allocated for exploration. We need to start right up front. Now, that's pretty much, and the board has tackled this agnostic of the near-term price. So we need to fill the funnel. That's the short answer.